Hello friends and welcome to our channel. Our today's video is about doctor tells man he's infertile, then he demands answers from his wife. But before we start, please make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell and smash that like button. We really appreciate your continuous support. From the outside looking in, Richard Mason had the perfect life. A self-made multimillionaire, he was also the father to 3 beautiful boys. But a single trip to the doctor changed everything. With a new diagnosis, he looked back at his life and realized he might actually be living a lie. Surely, Richard thought the doctor had made a grave mistake. Richard Mason might have a stern look on his face in this photo, but one look at his career and you'd be hard-pressed to find anything worth skulking about. Richard amassed a huge fortune as founder of the popular price comparison website Money Supermarket. Also, he had an amazing wife named Kate, along for the lavish roller coaster his business venture blessed them with. Richard met Kate when the two were both employed at the same bank. They hit it off almost immediately and soon found themselves at the altar, giving each other smiling I do's. Then the family expanded. 3 gorgeous sons entered their lives not long after they tied the knot. 2 were twins, Ed and Joel, and the oldest was Will. Sadly, the relationship between Richard and Kate wasn't to last a lifetime. After 2 decades of marriage, the couple called it quits. The spark they shared at the beginning fizzled out, and with all 3 kids over the age of 18, they legally brought their journey to an end. However, that didn't stop Richard from finding someone else to fill the loveless void the divorce left in his life. A woman named Emma swooped in and stole his heart, and once again he embarked on a marital adventure. Emma took to the lifestyle Richard provided her with quite easily, enjoying the elegant vacations and the mansion living. But Richard never questioned for a second if Emma was in it for him or for the wealth. Plus, she loved his sons, which was the most important factor. It seemed life resumed to a happy normal yet again for Richard until it all came abruptly crumbling down in 2016. The 55-year-old went in for a routine checkup at the doctor, expecting a brief visit. But after running some tests, Richard was given grave news. He developed cystic fibrosis, a life-threatening lung disease. He was crushed. The doctor then told Richard, look, yourself and Emma, you're gonna have difficulty having children because you are, as a man with cystic fibrosis, infertile. But how? He already had 3 kids with his ex-wife Kate. Surely the diagnosis was wrong. He told the doctor, you must have the diagnosis wrong because I've already got 3 boys. Unfortunately, the doctor knew the test didn't lie, which only meant one thing. The 3 boys Richard raised with Kate weren't his at all. Strangely, he recalled how people always compared the physical features of his sons to Kate and not to him. Now, those seemingly innocent comments felt like an unimaginable weight. It was too much to handle. How could this happen to him? Sure, he and Kate fell out of love, but there's no way she was so conniving. She kept a secret this big for 2 decades. Now, he demanded the truth. Immediately, Richard sent Kate an email demanding to know what had happened, but Kate denied everything in her response. It didn't matter, however, the science was irrefutable. Kate had an affair early on in their relationship. There was really no correct next step to take, but Richard now had a heart-wrenching conversation in his near future with his sons about both the diagnosis and their biological mother's lie. He reached out to his son Will first. Will took the news of the cystic fibrosis rather well, but the second part of the phone call was tough. However, Will knew where it was going. He told Richard, I'm already ahead of you, Dad. You're saying you're probably not my father. Under the guidance of paternity fraud expert Roger Terrell, Richard took more tests that confirmed he was sterile. Then he, along with his twin sons, submitted DNA for match testing. The results confirmed everything all along. The twins shared none of his DNA. In an interview, Richard admitted, it was like being hit by a hammer. It was like the world had just fallen away. Finding out the boys weren't mine was very, very hard. Kate was not going to get away with what she did to Richard, and he filed a paternity fraud lawsuit. The evidence was clear, and Kate was ordered to pay him $300,000. However, it was a bittersweet victory. The damage to Richard could never be undone, and even today his oldest son refuses to speak to him for taking Kate to court. For a while, Richard hoped the whole situation was a mistake. After all, he had heard about chimeras. Lydia Fairchild lived with her longtime boyfriend Jamie and their 3 children. It seemed like paradise on the surface, but deep down both Lydia and Jamie feared that their bliss wasn't built to last. After years, their relationship just wasn't working out. Truth be told, they'd broken up and gotten back together in the past. This time around, however, as they hit yet another another conflict, things felt so. Despite being pregnant with their fourth child, Lydia split up with Jamie for good. She genuinely thought it was for the best, but there were certain challenges that came along with this family divide. Having to soon raise 4 children on separate bank accounts, Jamie and Lydia decided to file for short-term federal assistance. They didn't expect any complications. It was just a matter of going through the proper channel. One of the customary requirements for aid was a DNA test. Lydia and Jamie had to prove that they were indeed the parents of their kids, which wasn't a stretch at all. She provided the lab with her sample and soon forgot all about it. Days later, the Department of Social Services asked Lydia to stop by as soon as she could, for an interview, she assumed. But as soon as she sat down and faced the steely gaze from across the desk, she realized it was more of an interrogation. The officer hurled all kinds of wild accusations Lydia's way. Not only did they claim that she had committed welfare fraud by making up her entire life story, but they also said that they had proof. What? Lydia couldn't even breathe when they showed the paperwork in her face. According to the results of her maternity test, she was not the mother of her children. In fact, they determined that there was a 0% chance of that. Because Lydia was a criminal raising someone else's kids in the eyes of the law, social services also threatened to take her children away. Lydia was about to watch her family fall apart before her very eyes. What else could Lydia do but dispute the test? I knew that I carried them, and I knew that I delivered them, she said. There was not a doubt in my mind. Still, her word meant nothing without solid proof. In the most desperate phone call of her life, she dialed her obstetrician, Dr. Leonard Driesbach. He confirmed that he personally delivered all 3 of Lydia's children. It was a huge relief knowing that there was at least one person in the world who believed her. Jamie vouched for Lydia too, though his word didn't mean much. Social services confirmed that he did father the kids, but similarly accused him of setting up Lydia as a surrogate and inventing a story to rip off the government. They were both in hot water. Their stories all matched, but still could not overturn a DNA test. To make sure that there wasn't an error the first time around, social services allowed Lydia to prove her maternity again, this time sending her test to a different lab. Shockingly, the second test said the same thing, that Lydia was not the mother. She realized she had to act quickly if she had any hope of holding on to her kids, but had no idea where to turn. Her lawyer, however, turned up an interesting lead. She was connected to Boston resident Karen Keegan, who encountered a similar enigma years earlier. When doctors compared her DNA to that of her 2 sons, they found that they shared no genetic material. But at the same time, the medical team determined that Karen was, without a doubt, the mother of her 3rd child. Those professionals wondered if the Keegans were hiding a dark family secret. But then another explanation formed in their minds. The theory revolved around the chimera, a beast from Greek mythology. According to the legend, this monstrosity was made up of a lion, goat, and snake, all sharing one melded body. Obviously, the chimera doesn't exist in the real world. But in extremely rare cases, animals can be genetic chimeras, meaning that they possess 2 distinct sets of DNA in one body. Doctors wondered if Karen carried outside DNA somewhere in her body. Further examination showed that she did. Medical experts surmised that shortly after Karen's conception, she fused with another fertilized egg in the womb. In other words, Karen was her own twin sister. There were only about 30 known genetic chimeras across the world, but Lydia wondered if she was one of them. It was her last chance, at least. Her lawyer asked to postpone the final hearing while she underwent a final round of testing. Amazingly, Lydia's suspicions proved correct. Doctors located a second set of DNA in her body, which matched exactly with her children's genes. She relaxed for the first time in what seemed like forever, knowing that nobody would take her kids away. More than anything, she felt grateful to learn of Karen's remarkable condition. The folks at Social Services were only doing their job after all. They couldn't be looking out for every medical anomaly. In fact, rare medical issues slide past the nose of Social Services more often than you might think. On April 4th, 2018, for instance, a woman named Elizabeth went into labor at a Baltimore County hospital. Well in the middle of suffering painful contractions, the doctor delivered bad news. The doctor walked into the room, looked her straight in the eyes, and told her she tested positive for opiates, the same drug found in heroin. They'd have to take her baby away. But Elizabeth had never done drugs in her life. Racking her brain for an explanation, the soon-to-be mother remembered something she'd learned in high school health class that explained the false positive. See, earlier in the day before she ended up at the hospital, Elizabeth stopped at her favorite cafe to pick up something for breakfast. She ordered her usual, a bagel. More specifically, she ordered a strawberry cream cheese on everything bagel, a bagel coated in poppy seeds. Poppy seeds, Elizabeth knew, had been known to wreak havoc on drug tests. But why? Farmers harvest poppy seeds from the poppy plant, which contain the opiates found in opium, heroin, codeine, and morphine. While the seeds are perfectly safe to eat, they can turn up false positives on drug tests. This was what Elizabeth remembered. To save her baby, Elizabeth tried to explain herself to the doctors and nurses. "I said, well, can you test me again? I ate a poppy seed bagel this morning for breakfast." But the doctor shook his head. The second he saw the failed drug test, the doctor followed protocol and reported Elizabeth to the state as a potential drug user. Immediately after birth, doctors took away Beatrice. Doctors told Elizabeth, "For the next 5 days, every 4 hours, we're going to check for her withdrawal symptoms." Elizabeth was in shock. It was traumatizing, she said. There was nothing she could do. At the end of grueling 5 days, the hospital released Beatrice back to her parents, but that wasn't the end of their awful ordeal. Even with Beatrice home, state social workers continued investigating Elizabeth, dropping by the home to ensure Beatrice was doing A-OK and that the mom wasn't actually a drug addict. For 3 weeks, social workers dropped by the house at random, checking in on the family. Meanwhile, Elizabeth presented the poppy seed defense to her assigned social worker, but did that have any real legal standing? You might remember the episode of Seinfeld, where after eating a poppy seed muffin, Elaine failed a drug test, but ultimately kept her jobs thanks to the poppy seed defense. But the defense has legal precedent in reality too. In 2013, a Pennsylvania woman won nearly $150,000 in a lawsuit after the state took her baby away when she tested positive for opiates. She argued it had been poppy seeds that caused the false positive and won. So Elizabeth Eden gave the poppy seed defense to her caseworker, and after putting up with even more bureaucracy, the official ultimately closed her file. Her family could be whole. Still, she wasn't satisfied quite yet. Elizabeth wrote to the hospital and detailed her research on poppy seeds and their effects on drug tests. She wanted the hospital to either change what constitutes a positive test or warn expecting mothers about poppy seeds. We don't typically educate patients on the poppy seed drug test potential. Dr. Judith Rossiter Pratt, the chief of the Department of OB/GYN at the hospital, said, Elizabeth's letter, she said, made a really good point. After writing the letter, Elizabeth posted in an All Moms Facebook page, warning others about the dangers of a poppy seed bagel. Her post received a flood of responses. Facebook moms told her, "Oh, this happened to a friend of mine," she said, or "Oh, this happened to me." The problem, it seemed, was a lot more far-reaching than she ever imagined, so she gave some advice. If you're anywhere close to delivery, she said, avoid poppy seeds. Just one more thing for pregnant mothers to worry about, but a precaution worth taking at the same time. Your family could depend on it. Did you enjoy today's story? Let us know what you think about it in the comments. If you believe this story was amazing, don't hesitate to share it with your buddies. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you'll never miss your daily dose of incredible stories.